And we couldn't have played a better song, To Be a Man by Dax, bringing us back into the show. Welcome back. This is the AM Club on MX24 TV, home of fun, fearless, and factual programming. My name is Godwin Nambo. Of course, always here with MFA Akosia Jeti. To be a man, to be a man. Before we jump into our conversation this morning, we are talking about depression in men as we celebrate Men's Month in June. But before we do that, we have a fine, cute, I say he's cute young man. He's an artist. He'll be joining us on the plug much later, but I'd like to have a little conversation with him before we start our depression talk. Yao Arts, Yao Arts, good morning. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good, sir. And you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. My producer kept saying that there's a surprise for you, there's a surprise for you. I'm wondering, what surprise do you have for us? What's happening?
Yeah, it's a surprise for you and MFA and everyone watching us right now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you're going to unveil the surprise now?
Yeah, sure.
Are you sure?
I'm not done, though, but
okay.
I'll continue.
Mr. Kosiadeti.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. So what, that's a picture of MFA and I?
Sure.
Oh, that's great work.
Hey, that picture that you facing me now.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, you facing me now, not every day.
Ah, okay.
I mean now.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's a beautiful.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do this?
I just started yesterday night.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Sure.
This is pencil.
Yeah, it is pencil.
That's a lot.
But I do painting too. I do every form of artwork.
That is why we are having a conversation with you on the plug,
sure.
okay? But this is good to see. Are you done with this, or you're going to continue?
No, I'm going to continue.
You're going to continue?
Yeah, live.
Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to allow you to continue live on the show while we have our conversation.
Yeah.
How old are you? Do you mind if I ask?
I'm 22 years.
You're 22?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, cute. Have you ever been depressed? Do you know what depression is?
No.
You've not
As
seen
an
depression
artist,
before?
you don't have to be depressed.
Hey!
Nice.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Bruh.
You don't have
Okay,
to.
spoken like a true 22-year-old. As an
Oh,
artist.
no, you don't have to, because art alone is something
Therapeutic,
healing already, so you don't have to.
That's a good way to also look at it. We'll talk to you on the plug, okay?
Yeah. Right.
But let's talk to two of my favorite people in the studio. Reverend Will Pedu Boateng is a life coach. He's no new face to the AM Club, as well as this lady that you always see on, what do you call that thing? Health Check.
Yeah.
Health Check. Hi, my name is Dr. Evelyn Roberts.
She's so lovely.
Yes, she is. Licensed clinical psychologist. Gentlemen and lady, welcome.
Thank you.
We almost said Happy New Year, but we know we've seen you this year, haven't we?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about depression in men. They said it's a man's conversation, but we need you, Dr. Evelyn. Starting off with my first question, of course, what is depression? And please tell me what the difference between depression and stress is.
Okay. So we are talking about depression. We are really looking at people who tend to have sad moods or irritable moods. This is also accompanied by loss of pleasure in activities that they tend to have pleasure in. It also accompanied by sometimes sleep disturbances. Either you are sleeping too much or you are not sleeping enough, so you have insomnia. Either you are eating too much or you are not eating enough. Sometimes it also comes with fatigue. It also comes with that feeling of lethargy, not wanting to do anything, isolation. So all of these symptoms are classified as depression. And when we are looking at stress, we are really looking at anxiety. It tends to be more anxiety. It tends to be that pressure that people tend to feel. And so then anxiety tends to sometimes make you a little bit more jittery, whereas depression will make you a little bit slow. It will make you want to isolate. So these are some of the differences between stress and then anxiety and depression.
So they don't play into each other in any way at all?
They do. They interrelate. And some of the symptoms are also similar. And so you're looking at what else is going on. You can then figure out whether the person has stress or anxiety or they have depression.
Okay. So this, from your definition, will mean that depression, maybe stress is more outward or physical, and depression will be a state of mind, isn't it?
And both actually can be a state of mind, but then you can be stressed, and then that could cause you to be depressed.
Okay.
Or you could also be depressed, and then that can cause you to be stressed. So there's that interrelationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when a person, you've outlined a number of things. So when a person says, I'm depressed, they are going through all these things you're talking about, isolation. Do they get angry?
Yeah, so that's where the irritability comes in.
So you get angry for no reason, or any small thing.
The least thing just makes you annoyed. It just makes you annoyed. That's one of the symptoms that is not very well known, because it's more popular to know that if you are depressed, you feel sad. But then when you are depressed, you can also feel irritable. So sometimes you can have people, it just seems like they are moody, but then it could be that they are depressed.
Okay. Reverend, I will, if I may.
Yes.
With what she's described as stress and depression, have you been able to, have you ever identified yourself feeling any of these things at some point in your life?
That's perfectly. Yes. Not even as, whether being a pastor or a normal man, I have. And it wouldn't be only me. We've seen counseled people in church also in other areas who have the same issues as Doug is talking about. So we surely do.
Were you able to diagnose yourself? Did you know that you were going through depression, or you realized that it was just stress that was making you feel that way?
If you know what is depression, you would identify what depression is and be able to also find the solution for the depression. It's not everybody who went to a psychologist to find solutions. Yes, because some people are not outspoken, especially when it comes to my field of profession like this or call like this. Sometimes it is not common for us to come out to say we are going to talk to somebody, because sometimes our field has a lot to do with confidentiality. Yeah, so maybe if one way or the other you are not careful, you fall in the hands of the wrong psychologist. Your discussion with the psychologist would rather bring you more of the very depression you are facing than any. Yes. Because the moment you end up holding your psychology section and you are done, and the person probably uses you again and makes the error of even mentioning your name to cite an example on a platform, you even be more depressed.
You mean like what the pastors do sometimes on the pulpit?
It's not only the pastors, that's why I'm talking about it. It's not only the pastors. In every field, there are people who are perfectly doing a good job, and others too don't do a good job. So it's not only pastors.
Okay. Can I self-diagnose?
It is possible if you are aware. If you are aware of the symptoms, you'll be able to self-diagnose and know that, okay, yes, I'm stressed, or I'm depressed, or I'm like whatever diagnosis it might be. It is possible to self-diagnose if you are aware of what the symptoms are.
And looking at the symptoms, must it be all of them that would make me realize that I'm actually depressed? Or when I experience, let's say, just anger and isolation, I could tell myself that I'm on my way to depression?
Yeah, so there's a continuum.
Okay.
So then sometimes you start to see the symptoms like come up. And so then, like you're saying, you see two of these symptoms, you realize that you are not where you used to be. And so if you are not where you used to be, then you have to start asking questions like, am I okay? What is going on with me? And so then that kind of self-awareness can help you know that, okay, something is not wrong here, and then maybe you need to start putting in certain mechanisms to try to, keep yourself from going full on depressed.
Doc, again, do you want to come in? Before you get into what causes depression, the causes of depression, is depression in women different from depression in men?
Sometimes it's in how it is manifested. So sometimes with men, we know that you may see a little bit more of the irritability or the anger. And sometimes so you may see that they are isolating. Sometimes they may work so much, like they are not coming home, they are hiding away in the office. Sometimes you see that they are really using substances to kind of cover up their depression. So you tend to see that more with men, whereas like with women, you tend to see kind of maybe the more emotional side of depression. So the feeling of sadness, the fatigue, you will see all of that. And also with men, you tend to see more of the somatization. So you feel that they feel it in their body. So the fatigue, the headaches, the back pain. So you see that also when it comes to depression in men. So you have that physical symptoms being manifested in that way.
Let's stay on the men. Okay, the reaction to depression when it comes to men, is it based on the person's personality?
It can. It can also be based on
so if you're an
a
introverted person, perhaps when the person is getting depressed, that's when they would, like you say, isolate because they're already introvert. So
Yes.
they'll isolate and all that.
Yes, and then the extrovert is more likely to engage, like just go out, like put their mind on free, so to speak, and just go out, drink, and just try to like numb the depression or just try to medicate it with substances in some way.
Reverse psychology, as someone will say.
Okay.
Anytime you're ready.
First, we want to know all the symptoms, and then we finally ask you, Gordon Nambo, have you ever been depressed? That's why we were allowing you to ask questions. But I like to, now you've stayed on the men, right?
Yes.
I want to find out that, would it be the same for the stages of a man's life, for a boy, a young adult, and say a man who's become a father? Will the symptoms be the same? And if they faced you as a psychologist, would you treat them differently?
So usually as a psychologist, I treat the person on a case-by-case basis. So a child psychology and like treating an adult tends to be different. So that's that. And then we also have a lot of different types of modalities. So we have behavioral therapy, we have cognitive behavioral therapy, we have psychoanalysis. So it really also depends on that too as well. So depending on the individual, and so for example, if I have somebody who is really expressive, then my modality changes. If I have someone who is not as expressive, doesn't want to really talk about their feelings, then my modality also changes there. Okay. So it really changes from person to person when it comes.
In your years of, I'm going to come to you, Rev, but let me stay with Doc for a minute. So in your years of experience, would it be safe to say that young adults or men who have lots of responsibility tend to be more depressed, or it will be based on the personalities, as Godwin?
It's definitely based on personality, but it also depends on sometimes what's going on in your environment. So sometimes you may have like a young boy, but then they've been in an environment of abuse, so then that level of depression, is one thing. And then you also have a man who has a lot of responsibilities, has a lot of financial burden, things are not really going on well for him. And so then there's that level of depression too. So it really also depends on what's going on in the environment. It also depends on the personality too as well.
Okay. Now, Rev, can you dare say that there could be a link between religion and depression? In your years of counseling, in your years of preaching, do you think that people tend to, push depression under the umbrella of religion ever?
I would say that yes and no. Yes, I would say yes and no. Some would rather push it, as you said, under the bedrock of religion. Yes, but under normal circumstance, religion, it's standing on its own and it is untouched. Depression is depression, irrespective of your religion, where you're coming from, whatever. Yes, the main thing is when you're depressed, you're depressed.
Okay.
Whether a Muslim, whether a Christian, whether a Hindu, whether a Buddhist, depression is depression. So,
do you find people who are depressed coming to you more than a psychologist?
Yes.
And why do you think is that?
Yes, because, honestly speaking, even if you go to the law, and when it comes to issues relating to marital challenges, and they first of all count on the religious leaders. Yes, they first of all count on the religious leaders because we play integral role when it comes to that. That is why I have one thing I say that in all the churches, if we can try our possible best to make sure the people we pick as counselors to even counsel the married people, they should have a little background of psychology. Yes.
Do you agree?
That's very interesting.
No.
Yes, I do. I believe that training is really essential. That training is really essential. So even the Ghana Psychological Council mandates that if you're a counselor, even in churches, that you are registered with the Ghana Psychological Council. So, yes.
I think that was a very good question. Very, very good question. And I don't even want to stay on the married people. Young men, generally young men. Am I likely, someone like me, am I likely to cover up my depression with faith and say, use scriptures, be anxious for nothing, but in all things, use scriptures to sort of, I don't want to use the word cover up,
Okay.
but sort of, you understand, to help me shield this thing I'm feeling, because I'm supposed to be a child of God. I'm not supposed to be going through some of these things. Is it likely that young people who have been in church for a long time would use scripture and perhaps the message from the man of God to shield their depression? Because you go and someone say, oh, you're a baby Christian, you're such a faithless person. Why is this small thing making you cower, right?
Well, of course, but I would say that the role of the man of God even plays or aids the psychologist. Yes, in many ways, because what we stand to speak sometimes picks people from their state of depression.
Can you hang in there a minute? Is this a fact?
Yeah, so you can be depressed, you can be facing a particular issue, you can go to church and a man of God say something through preaching, and then, you just feel so hurt, like you have that personal experience that, God, like I'm not alone, and so it is possible.
For you, the psychologist, does it aid your work?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we are into relief of symptoms. We are trying to help anyone who is depressed.
So you employ all the tools that the person understands. If it's religion, you will employ it.
Because religion has been proven to be a coping mechanism. And there's been research has been done that if you're a Christian, for example, it can be a coping mechanism. However, it's one thing to be a psychologist who is Christian and then to be a Christian psychologist. So those two are really different.
Right, please
and
continue.
So as I was saying earlier, I think Doug has confirmed that. So really the church aids in a big way. Yes, aids the psychological move or the aid of...
Well, you would say the church because you're a reverend. Would you say the religion in general? Because somebody's...
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let me say that the religion in general has aided in many ways. Yes, because somebody could be a religious leader and plays an integral role that maybe standing alone. I have a program I hold for myself in my side, and all I do is I try to make sure I gather the youth, and I try to make them feel okay. I don't know if you get me, but the thing here is we are diverse people in the church or in the field of our religion. Not everybody assembling there is okay. About 90% of the people are looking for solutions to their questions, and some of them can't afford a psychologist. So what they do is, when they come to church, they want to hear things that would encourage them, things that would take them out of their state of depression into a state of absolute relief, for them to feel, yes, I can do it, I can make it, it's possible, I can come out of this. That is why I say that the religious area shouldn't be a tool or a weapon of distraction. It should be a weapon of fixing. Aiding the psychologist in a way, because this person can't. And you, the one who is a religious leader too, must be able to educate yourself to that level, to be able to aid the people who come to you.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
Just a little bit. Just on the back of that, why did this day just escape me? Oh, goodness. Okay, please go ahead.
All right. So, I know that some of the results or the worst case scenarios for depression would be suicide, as we were discussing before. But from the psychologist, what are really the results of depression? The answer will launch me to the next question. What are the results of what's the worst case scenario?
I mean, if I may, I think one of the things we didn't ask is what is likely to cause even depression in men. If you could hold on to that before the result, I'd like to know exactly what is likely, Reverend I will, myself, all the men here, what is likely to cause depression in us? Is it heartbreak? Is it lack of money? I want a general answer, not based on personality. But for men, and maybe for the many men who come to you who are depressed, what was the cause?
So sometimes it's actually relationship. Sometimes it's relationship problems. Sometimes too it's work. Like things are not going on. It's money. It's financial. It can even be loss. So sometimes with men, these are some of the issues that can cause depression, like
more?
problems with work. It
Is
really
it financial? Is financial more? Is marriage more? Is relationship more? Is
depending on the responsibility on the individual. the financial piece can be a huge piece, because if you have a family, you're carrying a whole family, you have extended family members also depending on you, so that pressure is huge, and so then you also have that desire to meet all of those needs, and so then when you're not able to meet some of those needs, then that becomes like an issue.
Okay, the resulting effect.
Yeah, because you can be very rich and still be depressed because you don't know how to spend the money. Right. Okay. So the results of it. What's really the worst case scenario, and can you really treat it to the barest minimum or completely?
So the worst case scenario will be death. Basically, when one gets to the point where they feel they can't live anymore, and then they commit suicide. So that is the worst case scenario. But it can be treated. So once you're able to treat someone who gets out of that depression, then what happens is that they use the skills that they learned in therapy to really continue. So that the idea is not for them to be in therapy forever, but then you learn the skills so that later on, if you're getting depressed, you'll be able to identify it, get to a point where you are not at a 10. As you are climbing up, you know that I'm getting there. And so then you put in mechanisms that could help ease your depression, whatever they may be for you, because the treatments or the solution can also differ from person to person, depending on your personality, depending on your religion and all of that. So,
Can a person who's depressed, how does a person who's depressed impact the people around him? Is it possible that it could affect the relationship they have with the people around them?
Yes, it can. So imagine you're a man, you are depressed. So you are not really going to be communicating with your wife the way you should. So maybe you are in the office. Now you're coming home at 1 a.m. Maybe now you started going out with friends, you're drinking. You can imagine that that's going to impact your relationship at home. It's going to even impact possibly your relationships at work, your ability to perform, because you will not be able to have that kind of energy that you tend to have when you don't have depression. And so then all of these things can impact your relationships, it can impact your ability to function, it can impact like the results that you're able to produce. So all of these things are the effects of depression.
I like to be a little biased because here, when it comes to depression in men, we are often referring to people who are married, but I also look at very young people who are not married, okay? And it's possible that a young man who is depressed could let it affect his colleagues, the people he works with, perhaps his friends, his immediate friends and all that. And when you're helping us with what you call it, first of all, how do we as a people help identify or know that this person is going through something and perhaps that's why they're behaving this way, and how do we help them? How do we help them?
Can Rev take this one? Because as a pastor, are you able to identify that this is depression, it's nothing spiritual? Yes. So somebody sitting in front of you says that, Pastor, this, I believe that the witch in my house is doing me this. Are you as a pastor able to draw the line?
Yes.
That, listen, my friend, this is no spiritual, nothing here. You need to see a psychologist.
Yes.
You able to tell?
Yes. And it's not everything for me, it's not everything I come up to say that's probably is spiritual. Yes, sometimes you see someone who is outspoken, like the person is okay, talking all the time, always everywhere. All of a sudden, the person comes to church and the person is reserved.
Maybe they decided that they are talking too much in life.
So I just would call you to my office and I'll be like, hey, how are you? How is everything? Is everything okay? Their response will tell you that, no, there's something wrong somewhere. And some will try to fake it, make it look like it's okay. Everything is fine, I just wanted to. But you have to delve a little bit deeper. It's like, okay, it's like you're not yourself today. Is everything all right?
Okay.
Is everything cool?
Okay. So what the person will tell you, because we're looking for the because God had asked, how do we help? And I believe that it starts from the home, the churches, society and all. And the first port of call will be the church for me. That's why I'm asking. At what point do you know that, listen, do not keep this person in the church. You must refer them to somebody like Dr. Evelyn.
Oh, at the point where you realize that what you are doing as a pastor, whether praying for the person, whether trying to use your own understanding in counseling to put in everything and it's not working. And the church itself must have a lead with a certain, let's say, psychology, facility. Yeah, you see, before we used to have this community centers that had people who would counsel you. You walk through as a young man, you are depressed or something, you talk to somebody. We don't have it anymore in our community. So the church tends doing the whole work. So then we don't have a link between us and the psychologist. So the church do the whole thing and it doesn't work, and then but but that point where maybe there should be a connection, maybe whether the church looking for a psychological center or something where they can relate with a psychologist. I think it's cool. They have some in the hospitals, in other, because depression is treated as a mental health issue. So they have psychologists in the hospitals and clinics who also attend to such things. So I think there is, in any way, at the point where you think you've putting in your mechanisms and it's not working, quickly you need to refer them to the right place.
Okay.
Dr. Roberts, I have just two more questions, and then I guess.
She didn't answer the how to help.
How to
I
help.
wanted him to help on the
From his
religious side. Yeah,
perspective,
so
okay.
how we can help.
So I think first you notice the changes, like you were saying. If you notice that there's been a change in behavior, and that's when you need to, really try to approach the person and have a conversation. So we're looking at changes in behavior for one. They are not what you know them to be. Exactly. And so then that's when you start to have a conversation. And then from there, you can either you as a person be a support system and then try to do what you can. Also recommend that maybe talk to your pastor, talk to a psychologist and all of that. So it really starts with first noticing the differences and the changes.
So basically all we can do, people who are not trained to be psychologists, so just colleagues, friends, we just have to identify that and have a conversation.
Have a conversation.
What if the person is not opening
support.
up? Some people just don't want to open up.
Yeah, so then whatever support that you can give because of your knowledge of the person, you try to do that. Maybe if you find that like work is overwhelming, so can you take up some of the responsibilities from them, for work, or like however you can help, however you can show them, like just relieve their burdens, that could help.
And in basic treatment for depression, is socialization part?
It really depends on the individual, because if socialization is really leading to drinking and a possible substance abuse issue, you may not want socialization to be part of the treatment for that individual. So, but then at the same time, you don't want the person to isolate. So if they are going to be socializing, it has to be a healthy kind of socialization.
But so there is the natural inkling for anyone, or especially, we're talking about men here, for men who are depressed. Is that not, let me ask the question differently, is that not the natural inkling for a man to, no matter what, want to speak with someone, but they don't because, again, like we say, because of societal narratives.
Stigma.
So they keep it to themselves. But doesn't any and every man want to, the little outlet they get, even with introverts, don't they want to speak?
Yeah, but the speaking helps, but whether they will actually speak is like that is another issue. That's why sometimes you find that a man has committed suicide and people are shocked because he kept it to himself. Maybe you might notice that there were those changes in behaviors, but you might even translate that as, oh, he's really working hard now, but then that might be a problem. And so speaking helps. But I don't think men are naturally
introverts like that.
Geared to just
open up.
Yeah, you have to be a safe person for one, and then you're noticing the other ways. So sometimes it might not be, oh, I'm depressed. It's I feel off. Things are not right. So they might not use those words that women can actually, I just feel depressed. I just feel so sad today. For a woman, it can be easy to express that. Yeah. But then for a man, he might use other terms.
Who's a man? Sorry,
consultation.
Yes,
No, this is from when we're wrapping the conversation. By the way, so this is from Singlet. He's asking, does depression cause panic attack?
So usually depression can cause stress, which can cause panic attack. Okay. But depression in itself doesn't directly cause panic attacks. It's causing the stress, and then the stress causing the panic attack.
Okay.
Who's a man more likely to talk to, a man or a woman?
I think.
You should answer your question.
Okay, I think it depends on the individual.
Really?
Yes, it depends on the individual. Some guys are so good when they sit anywhere, they can just voice out what they're going through. Charlie, things are bad for me. Charlie, of late, they are good at speaking out when they are with guys.
Some of the criticisms come from their own guys.
I really wanted to say something earlier when you were talking to Doug. I think that society has also not contributed to the relief of the depression of men. Yes, in a way, because right now I feel probably I have a problem. I am quiet now. I'm not behaving the way I used to behave. And then say MFA comes close to me and will be like, would want to talk to me, want to know what exactly is going on. Then society will be like, yeah. But probably she's just helping.
Being a friend.
Okay, and one way also I think that this whole depression thing, you approach somebody, the person is not speaking. Maybe the person is likely to speak to someone more than you.
Right. Right.
Who is more closer than you. So you have spotted it, the person hasn't. So you talk to the person to check it for that fellow, and I think solutions can be gotten from there too.
Doc, can you get depression through sex? That's how you people like. How so?
Bad sex.
Or do you mean that you would use sex to want to cure your depression, or you mean through sex?
No, maybe bad
Because
sex.
sometimes it can lower your libido.
Right.
Depression can lower your libido, so
Okay.
you may not even want to.
Have it at all.
And if you're having bad sex with your partner, it won't give you depression.
It can. It can
Right?
definitely.
So it can cause depression.
It can.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depression in
Anyway.
men. This conversation is not a 30 minutes
Yeah,
conversation. It's
it's a lot to talk about. People should also look at their behavior. Some people have bad behaviors and it affects them and they say they are depressed. Change your life. Okay, guys, that's just about it. But thank you so much. We have Akrawi Day, Chichi Brothers Akrawi Day. We're bringing it to you, but let's say thank you to Reverend I Will. Let's say thank you to Dr. Evelyn. She's so always lovely. How's baby?
Very good.
Okay.
Where can we reach you? Those who are watching.
Psychologist Ghana.
Psychologist Ghana. We can get you there. Reverend I Will. We need counseling, please. Where can I come?
Please, you can get me on Facebook, Daiwo Boateng, and on TikTok, Daiwo Boateng 123. Yes, and I would reach.
Right. Yeah, our art is also still painting us, making us look very good. We'll come back to him, but up next we have Akrawi Day.